think I was.
Excellent. Church History, Lecture 16, page 3, as we're coming back for another video. Page 3. So, theological movements within Protestantism. So, the following sections are excerpts from a Wikipedia article on Protestantism. See, I gave you where I stole it from. Now, this guy on the right is a strange-looking feller. For many reasons, I'm glad it's a distant picture, because you get closer to his face and you start going, I'm not sure about this. At first I thought it was just a guy with a long beard looking thing, and then his face is just, ooh, whoa.
He's got two beards.
Yeah, I think he's got two faces too. Okay, anyways, this is the way he is. Protestant Christianity in the 20th century was characterized by accelerated fragmentation. The century saw the rise of both liberal and conservative splinter groups, as well as a general secularization of Western society. That's true. That's a big statement there, yeah. Missionaries made inroads in the Far East, China, establishing further followings in China, Taiwan, and Japan. The liturgical movement became significant in both Catholic and Protestant Christianity, especially in Anglicanism. What does liturgical mean to you? It's not like detergent. It's a little different than that.
Liturgy.
Yeah. Ceremonial, ritualistic, fancy, elaborate, always doing it the same way.
Yeah.
That type of thing. If you've ever been to at least a Catholic church service, many Protestant ones, that's what they'll do.
In
Lutheran, yeah.
A lot. Liturgy.
Yeah. Going on, so another movement which has grown up over the 20th century has been Christian anarchism, which rejects the church, state, or any power other than God. There's some Baptists like that, I think. They usually also believe in absolute non-violence. That's who this guy is, over to the right. Leo Tolstoy. His book, The Kingdom of God is Within You, published in 1894, is believed to be the catalyst for this movement. Now, the Bible does speak about that.
Right.
But where he carries it, and where also the CBN guy carried it,
Pat Robertson.
I think is wrong.
Yes.
Haven't read their books, though. Okay, going on. Christian ecumenism. Ecumenism. I just don't, the word, I say ecumenicalism, but the correct word is ecumenism. This Protestant movement grew in importance beginning at the Edinburgh Missionary Conference in 1910. Okay, that's kind of where this became popular, at least. Its origins lay in the recognition of the need for cooperation on the mission field in Africa, Asia, and Oceania. So, that sounds like a reasonable starting off goal. Missions. Is it to you?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I think it's good to work with other churches to try and get the gospel across. Not churches of unlike faith, though, but
No.
they thought they were the same faith, I guess. By the end of World War II, the World Council of Churches, are we a part of that?
No. Better not be.
No. Was formally constituted at the Amsterdam Conference in 1948. 1948, interesting year.
62 years ago.
Yeah, Israel also. The entire movement depended for most of its money and for part of its drive on the Americans. But its headquarters was in Geneva. And under the guidance of its first General Secretary, Netherlands Reformed Administrator W.A. Vissertvoft, that's this guy to the left, it never lost sight of the fact that the traditional problems of divided Christian Europe had to be met if it was to succeed. So there was divided ranks through Europe, Christian Europe, and they needed to consolidate. Work together. If you're ever going to get whatever their goal was done. And that's the same today. If we're going to ever reach the world for Jesus, we need to all get together, Miss Kayla. The church, you know. All the Christians, the church. Right? No? Oh, she says no. Okay. She's right. Alright, and then goes on to say here, in the years after 1948, the ecumenical movement brought Protestants into an ever-growing dialogue with the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Catholics. And that's going on today, all the more. So, someone want to read the next part?
Since 1948, the World Council of Churches has been
influential, but ineffective in creating a united church.
That's for sure.
There are also ecumenical bodies at regional, national, and local levels across the globe.
Yikes.
But schisms still far outnumber unifications. One, but not the only expression of the ecumenical movement, has been the move to form united churches,
Yikes.
such as the Church of South India, the Church of North India, the U.S.-based United Church of Christ, the United Church of Canada, Uniting Church in Australia, and the United Church of Christ in the Philippines, which have rapidly declining memberships.
Right. So when you see United Methodist, United whatever, understand it's an ecumenical viewpoint. Getting together, getting other groups together with you, different groups, and we're uniting together to be stronger. They have the United Baptists in other countries also. So in this 20th century, which is the 1900s, up to 1950 I should say, liberalism was an issue. As the more radical implications of the scientific and cultural influences of the Enlightenment began to be felt in Protestant churches, especially in the 19th century, liberal Christianity, exemplified especially by numerous theologians in Germany in the 19th century, sought to bring the churches alongside of the broad revolution that modernism represented. So along with the intellectual thought and just getting out of oppression by these communistic governments, came also the idea with churches to get out of oppression from dictatorships within the churches and to be more, well, less rule following and more liberal. Anything wrong with that? Well, in their groups it might have been good in some places, but overall becoming more liberal is not good. The only thing you should be liberal in is giving.
Love.
Yeah. The liberal soul
Peace.
shall be I forgot.
Made fat.
Made fat, yeah. Made fat. Fat and flourishing. Well, I was in an old age. It should be fat and flourishing. Liberal soul should be made fat. Okay, going along here. So, in doing so, new critical approaches to the Bible were developed. Oh, they got critical in the Bible. New attitudes became evident about the role of religion in society. And a new openness to questioning the nearly universally accepted definitions of Christian orthodoxy began to become obvious. So they started questioning things. Some things were good to question, but most of it, like questioning, was Jesus really God? Questioning his virgin birth, questioning the Bible, who really wrote it? Is it really of God, or is it just men that wrote it? Liberalism. Are you a liberal? And who's this guy to the right? Well, you see his name there, Noel Smith. Anyone know anything about him? Who has ever heard or seen this feller? Okay. Would you please stand, sir? Good. A true independent Baptist. Yes. Okay. Have a seat. Well, sword of the Lord fame. He was one of these big fighting fundamentalists in the early 1900s. I'm not sure it was when he was around, but somewhere in the early 1900s, and was an outspoken, powerful preacher somewhere in Michigan, I think. Going on. So fundamentalism. In reaction to these developments of liberalism in the early 1900s, and 19th century too, Christian fundamentalism was a movement to reject the radical influences of philosophical humanism, which was affecting Orthodox Christianity, so humanism moving in. So, the fundamentalists began to appear in various denominations. So it wasn't just Baptist, my friends. That's why using that term by itself is not too, well, I don't think we should. But so in numerous denominations as numerous independent movements of resistance to the drift away from historic Christianity. So it was a good thing. Not against that. Over time, the fundamentalist evangelical movement has divided into two main wings. Well, here it is. With the label fundamentalist following one branch, while evangelical has become the preferred banner of the more moderate movement. So, this is pretty important to think about. So, you had fundamentalists, so-called, coming out or crying out against what?
Liberalism.
Liberalism, which came about kind of through Enlightenment and the wars ending and all, so, or wars, I guess, and social philosophy. Okay, so fundamentalism comes there, and then it splits into two big sections. One still held the name fundamentalist, and the other became known as evangelicals. And who was more modern or modernistic or moderate? Evangelicals. Okay, very good. Independent Baptism, I believe, from my understanding of history, came out of this fundamentalism. Because Independent Baptists, they weren't called Independent Baptists until I think about the 50s or so. So, that's fine. Because there were Northern Baptist Convention, Southern Baptist Convention, and true Baptist churches probably weren't too much a part of those, but they could have been. And there was just Baptist churches. I guess there were even some Anabaptist churches, brother. As crazy as that name may sound in today's world. That was the name of your church you came from.
I thought independent Baptist churches came out of Southern Baptist churches that got liberal.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
No, but that's true. It wasn't solely from that, but that was the main group they came out of. Yeah, you're right. Because the Northern Baptists were more modern, but there still was breaks out of that too. And we will get into that later on in this course, if you can just stick around that long. Neo-Orthodoxy. Well, look at this happy camper here. We're not to him yet, sorry. A third but less popular option than either liberalism or fundamentalism was the Neo-Orthodox movement. You ever hear of that term?
Yes.
Do I live in Omak? Kansas, take me away, Dorothy, or how's that go?
Kansas, take me away, Dorothy.
What? Well, Calgon, okay. Calgon, all right. This is a mixture of all these things. I thought she clicked her feet together and she said, "Take me away."
But the
There's no
quote
place
that you
like
were
home.
doing,
There's no place.
I don't
like
think
home.
we're in Kansas anymore.
I think we are in Kansas.
Toto, I don't think.
Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, yeah. But actually, it's when you say you haven't heard of Neo-Orthodoxy, then I say we're in Kansas. Yeah, but that's okay. You don't need to know about these things other than for this, for a test. Yeah. So this Neo-Orthodox movement, back to these notes, which generally affirmed a higher view of Scripture than liberalism. Well, good. But did not tie the main doctrines of the Christian faith to precise theories of biblical inspiration. Not good. So it was kind of in between liberalists and fundamentalists. If anything, thinkers in this camp denounce such quibbling between liberals and conservatives as a dangerous distraction from the duties of Christian discipleship. So there were some good things out of Neo-Orthodoxyism and bad things. Karl Barth, that's that guy there. Who has ever heard that name before? Well, okay, we've got some hands. That's, I guess, good.
Looks a little like Daniel Monahan.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it does have that. That's a little goofy. A Swiss Reformed pastor and professor brought this movement into being by drawing upon earlier criticisms of established, largely modernist, Protestant thought made by the Ikes or likes of Søren Kierkegaard and Franz Overbeck. Hopefully I understand that statement. Okay. Dietrich Bonhoeffer adhered to this school of thought. His classic, The Cost of Discipleship, is likely the best known and accessible statement of the Neo-Orthodox position. Alright? This is called church history. Some of you go, I don't care about church history. Well, I don't care too much about Protestant church history myself, or Catholic, but I do care a lot about my roots. This church's roots and churches like ours roots, so we'll get to that. We're going to have one lecture on that before the end of this course. I think we got at least 10 or 15, maybe 20. All right, we'll finish up here. Look at that guy. Wow, who is that?
Very young.
Yeah, buddy. I think he looks better with longer hair. It's kind of
Well, it
odd
wasn't
there.
so hard.
Yeah, his head looks like it's-
You know.
Looks like I'm having a horrible dream here. His head is too big, his body's really small. Oh.
It's the 19
Don't do drugs.
little Buffont, the guys.
That's true. Buffon.
Not Buffon for the guys.
Well, yeah, it was Buffon.
No, they
Stop,
call
Bill.
it
Ponderay.
what do they call it?
Piedmont. Let's go on with this. They're quibbling over this hairstyle from the 1950s. All right, post-World War I. Someone read that, please. Take us out of here, Toto.
Post World War I era, liberalism was the faster growing sector of the American church. Liberal wings of denominations were on the rise, and a considerable number of seminaries held and taught from a liberal perspective as well. In the post-World War II era, the trend began to swing back towards the conservative camp, merely the evangelical wing of Protestant denominations in America's seminaries and church
Okay.
structures.
So both of those are in there. So post World War I, was it getting more liberal or more conservative? Liberal. Post World War II, it swung back to conservative. And here we are in the second one. So the 1950s saw a boom in the evangelical church in America. The post World War II prosperity experience in the U.S. also had its effects on the churches, although simplistically referred to as morphological fundamentalism. The phrase nonetheless does accurately describe the physical developments experienced here. Well, church buildings were erected in large numbers, and the evangelical church's activities grew along with this expansive physical growth. So they had a lot of church buildings and bigger church buildings. Because a long time ago, there was no such thing as typically as a big church building.
Yeah.
It was pretty standard.
This.
Bigger than this, but not a lot bigger. That's your standard, squared off, probably 100 foot by 30 foot, somewhere in there, 40, 50 foot. Well, going on now to some things that might be more interesting, and then the next three lectures for sure will catch your fancy, I think. Now look at these guys in this bottom picture. Don't read anything about it. Does anyone have a guess dealing with Pentecostalism, what this might be? Don't read the underlined statement. You read it. Well, we'll get there. Okay. Billy Graham here. Okay, evangelicalism is not a single monolithic entity. The evangelical churches and their adherents cannot be easily stereotyped. Most are not fundamentalist, in the narrow sense that this term has come to represent, but many still refer to themselves as such. So remember the split?
Yeah.
So-called split. Evangelicals, more liberal, and fundamentalists, more conservative. That's pretty standard. But if you look at evangelicals today, they're considered conservative compared to all these others. So, an evangelical, what do you think of when you hear the term evangelical in the name?
Evangelist.
Yeah.
So getting the gospel.
gospel
So
out
hopefully
to the lost.
getting the gospel to the lost and the correct gospel.
Yeah.
And many churches, at least in time past, that were evangelicals, had the true gospel and tried to get it out somehow. Praise the Lord. At least preached on it. Then there's neo-evangelicalism. So neo means what? New. Very good. So the neo-evangelical push of the 1940s and 50s produced a movement that continues to have wide influence, and it does, especially in the South. Yeah, that's true. Billy Graham was one of the more classic and well-known neo-evangelicals. Some, such as Jerry Falwell, have managed to maintain credibility in the eyes of many fundamentalists, as well as to gain stature as a more moderate evangelical. Yeah, that's true, but most people that know about Christianity call Jerry Falwell an extreme right fundamentalist, extreme. And independent Baptists like me look at him as a compromiser. It's kind of funny. But he was a good man. He did more to preach and had more influence on morality and the Bible than I have ever had. I probably ever will have. He had a lot of influence. We can beat him up, but you compare him to some other preachers today, and I'll take Jerry Falwell. I've heard him before he died, of course, on TV, and he made no bones about it. He told them what he believed, and most of the time he was right on. Right on! But I wouldn't have necessarily gone to his church. And my son goes to his church, well, not his church, but his son pastors there, and my son goes to it, and running about 10,000. That's a lot of thing. It is it's a very colonial style, standard brick, red brick, with the white pillars, and then it goes like across this way pretty wide, but then it goes that way a long ways. It's interesting. The whole town is built around that one church building. Very interesting. Going on, though, evangelicals are diverse as the name that appear. Very diverse. Billy Graham. Who else? Yes. And who else?
Chuck Colson.
There you go. Someone else.
J.I. Packer.
Yes, someone else.
J. Vernon McGee.
Very well said. Someone else?
Getting it.
Pat Robertson.
Yes, others.
Jimmy
Carter.
John Stott. Okay. Yep. So why diversity? Well, that's what they're trying to show here. Diversity amongst neo-evangelicals. And I don't know a lot about them, other than they're new, Magoo, improved. I think they just get more liberal as you add neos to it. Pentecostalism. As we close off this. And if you're a Pentecostal, doesn't mean you're messed up, got problems, necessarily. Or you might say at your meetings, just because we're a Baptist doesn't mean we're necessarily messed up, right? Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. But one of the big differences with Pentecostals and, let's say, independent Baptists would be
gifts.
yeah, so
Sign gifts.
cessationists, we're cessationists. They're not, typically. And so that's a big difference. Now, there's a lot of similarity in separation, holiness, to some degree, in some certain groups at least.
Maybe gospel.
Some still use the King James Bible, and there's,
Perpetuity of the church.
okay, perpetuity, yeah, they may believe on that. Most of them are Universal Church believers, as far as I understand. There's differences, but anyways, we love you. I don't know if you align yourself with this group here, but another noteworthy development in 20th century Christianity was the rise of the modern Pentecostal movement, sprung from Methodists. Ha ha! Now we know. And Wesleyan roots. That arose out of the meetings at an urban mission on Azusa Street in Los Angeles. Well, so-called. There was a few other groups before that, but this was the one that really caught on. From there, it spread around the world, and yes, it surely did. Carried by those who experienced what they believed to be miraculous moves of God there, i.e., Pentecost-like Pentecostalism. If we can cover this, we're going to do this. Which in turn birthed the charismatic movement within already established denominations. Remember, charismatic is not a denomination. Well, maybe it is. It's not a denomination. It is a belief system, a style. You have the sign gifts, and you freely practice them. And they can be Catholic charismatics, or Baptists even. So charismatic movement within already established denominations continues to be an important force in Western Christianity. That is for sure. I don't know about important, but it is a force. There is some debate as to whether Pentecostals are considered to be evangelical. That's what this article says. Their roots in Pietism and the holiness movement are undisputedly evangelical, but their doctrinal distinctives differ from the more traditional evangelicals, yes, who are less likely to have an expectation of private revelations from God, and differ from the Pentecostal perspective on miracles, angels, and demons. Dealing more with the sign gifts. Typically, those who include the Pentecostals in the evangelical camp are labeled neo-evangelical by those who do not. Okay. National Association of Evangelicals, NAE, and the Evangelical Alliance have numerous Trinitarian Pentecostal denominations among their membership. What does Trinitarian mean to you?
Recent.
They believe in the Trinity.
Yeah, they believe in the triune Godhead, because there's Pentecostal groups that are known for being Jesus only.
Oh.
We've heard of that before. Okay. Another relatively late entrant to wide acceptance within the evangelical fold is the Seventh-day Adventist Church. There are a few that have the gospel right and are truly born again, I've heard. Ain't met one yet, but they're supposed to be out there. So, that is a 200-year, 150-year history of Protestantism, and I will put this in a study guide so you don't have to hurt your brains. But it was good to go over this. Take a break.